Hey, good evening. Welcome to Rominger Radio. This is Carl Rominger broadcasting live here on the internet. 717-916-5189. 717-916-5189. I thought this laptop was not going to work again tonight because it gave me a little sputter at the beginning. But hey, no sense reinventing the wheel if you don't have to. Again, if you want to talk about the shooting in California, 717-916-5189. And, of course, my main topic tonight. Jump on, and we want to hear what you have to say. 717-916-5189. What did Snowden do? Well, and I think this is important. One of the things that Manning Up was a play on Bradley Manning. Very clever of Kerry to do that. It's probably good they don't have Biden out there talking about him at this point, because Lord knows what Biden would say. But anyhow, I want to hear what you guys have to say about Snowden. So I'm looking forward to a phone call or two here. And you jump on the radio, 717-916-5189, and we'll see what you guys have to say about Snowden. Traitor? Not a traitor? Keep him? Should he be pardoned? I think he should be pardoned. We learned a couple important things. And what do I mean by that? Well, up until then, the government had argued that these programs were secret. And anybody who was suing the government, for instance, including a lot of news outlets, the ACLU, a number of individuals, libertarians, conservatives, liberals, all sued the government and said, hey, you have this secret spying program. We think that you're violating our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. Well, what we learned is that U.S. Supreme Court, in dismissing that lawsuit, relied upon claims by the Justice Department, and specifically in their ruling, said, hey, the Justice Department told us that the NSA would only and embarrassingly rendered a decision against the people and in favor of the government based on government lies. So we wouldn't have known about that, however, for Snowden's revelations. 717-916-5189 if you want to get here on the air and we want to hear what you have to say. We have the Skype up and running, so if you have a position on this, I want to hear it. 717-916-5189. Also, in the meantime, a little bit before Snowden's revelation, Director Clapper of the NSA lied under oath to Congress saying that there was no bulk data collection. And Clapper actually lied to Congress and said, this doesn't exist. There's no such program. No, we don't do it. He was asked. And he lied. He said later, well, in order to maintain national security, I had to lie. So here's the problem. The people who think that Edward Snowden should go to jail, the people who think he should literally be shot as a traitor, tend to be what I call the law and order types. comes out and people start to think, wait a minute, and this is interesting. Remember when they were saying, oh, how did some low-level hacker get 1 million documents, 1.7 million or 1.2 million documents from the NSA? What a breach of security. Now we're finding out that Snowden was actually a trained spy for the government, gave lectures to the Defense Intelligence Agency, gave lectures to the CIA, some low like President Congress would have. This is a sophisticated computer spy, and himself said, intelligence out of computers nowadays than they do out of people, Snowden tells Williams. I was trained to spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word, in that I lived and worked undercover overseas, pretending to work in a job that I am not, and even being assigned to a name that was not mine. But I'm a technical specialist, I'm a technical expert. I don't work with people, I don't recruit agents. What I do is put systems to work for the United States. I've done that all the levels, from the bottom of the ground, on the ground, all the way to the top. I'd be very curious to see what
Carl.
Yeah, how are you?
Hello, this is Dwayne from Elizabethtown.
Hey, Dwayne, how you doing?
Good. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that only about half your show is being broadcasted.
What's going on?
Cutting out and going back on.
Oh, is it giving you problems?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just on my end or if it's everywhere.
It might be on your end, because my end seems to show it going out steadily, but I never know.
Okay.
And you're straight.
Working for the wrong side, they're the true villains. Snowden's the good guy.
Well, you notice he's going to be on TV tonight, right? And Kerry comes out calling him a coward, calling him a traitor, every word under the sun, because they're scared to death of this guy, because he's basically let the American people in on a dirty secret, which is our government was working, the executive branch particularly, was lying to the judicial and the legislative branch about their activities, openly lying, and the only way we know about this is because Snowden leaked it.
Right.
I think it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, and the man he was on top of the world, making good money, living the dream, and he destroyed his life by bringing out this information, let alone he's now probably never going to be allowed back in the country. I don't know why the man would do that. I admire him for it.
He was no dummy. He had to know, like you said, he had to know that the day he did this, he was signing the proverbial death sentence, so to speak. And I don't mean literally his death sentence. Maybe he was. That's why he wanted to make sure, by the way, people knew who he was and get his identity out, because I think he rightfully feared that we would have executed him secretly if we could have gotten away with it.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I hope, I assume he's still in Russia, but I hope they take good care of him over there and keep an eye on his back.
Well, and here's the irony. We all know that Russia is a totalitarian state. We all know that Russia is not a nice place to live. We all know that Russia probably does all the things the NSA does, and we know that Vladimir Putin is playing this as best he can. But I can't blame Snowden for wanting to survive. He couldn't, under the, one of the guys on Facebook today was like, well, he was protected under the Whistleblowers Act. I'm like, no, he's not. Under the Whistleblowers Act, as an intelligence community person, it was his job to bring this to the attention of a committee of Congress. Now, what we now know is that the committees of Congress were, A, being lied to, and B, those in the know were willingly letting the government lie to them. They were not functioning as an oversight committee. They were not doing their congressional duties. And we've been selling personal freedom in exchange for an alleged security. And I played earlier on my little promo for this show from the TED Talks, Snowden basically saying, hey, wait a minute, there's no example of any of these NSA programs actually stopping a terrorist in their tracks, eminently going to harm the United States. Now, of course, the NSA says, well, we can't tell you if there was. But the reality is they haven't done anything with these programs to make you or I safer. All they've done is create an environment where everything you and I say is being recorded and being used by the government. And, everybody loves the government they have at the moment. But somebody posted on Twitter the other day, which I liked, which is, the last time a government had all the firearms registered and accounted for, they were rounding people up and sending them to concentration camps. And when government has perfect information and government has the ability to go back and listen to all my phone calls, the power is just so immense. It's ridiculous.
All your emails, all your correspondences, everything.
And we all know
unlimited power.
We all know how one girlfriend with a tape recorder can destroy your NBA ownership, let alone the NSA tapping every phone call you do, every place, everywhere. Now, the law and order types, and I call them the law and order types, they'll be like, well, I don't do nothing illegal, so I have nothing to hide, Carl. I do not understand why you are afraid. If you have nothing to hide...
Yeah, bull crap.
These are also, by the way, the same guys who are like, I will never sign up for Obamacare. I don't care if they put me in jail. I'm like, well, dude, then you have something to hide. You don't want to participate in the Obamacare regime, for instance, or you want to cheat on your taxes somehow by not participating in the whatever you want to do. You're trying to say you have nothing to hide, but then in a second breath, you're telling about all the government regulations you're going to ignore. It reminds me we were hunting one time, and the game warden basically explained to us that he was going to continue to practice archery in Carlisle whether the borough prohibited it or not. We're kind of like, you don't like those laws? We don't like the game laws. I mean, just everybody has a different perspective.
Right. Hey, can I change the subject over for a moment?
Whatever you want to talk about.
I was listening to some of your prior and your first show that you did. You were concentrating on, call it global warming, call it climate change, call it whatever you want to call it.
I remember.
And then you were saying about the percentage of what you feel is created by humans on the Earth.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think that we are making somewhat of a difference. I'm not sure to what percent, but my comeback to that is Al Gore and all his buddies that preach this stuff. I would recommend if they all would just stop breathing. That would help the cause.
And if they stop flying their private jets. And Al Gore's house, for instance. I mean, listen, we could all be hermits and live in 500 square foot footprints and keep our room temperature like my mother does, by the way, at 58 degrees in the wintertime because I don't know why she's crazy. I don't know exactly why. But, you go visit my mom. You're like, can you turn the heat up? Because, normal people, mom, are used to a little bit warmer. But my point is you could literally, truly minimize your carbon footprint. But when some, I don't want to say asshole with a plane, tells me, when he burns as much fuel as it takes to move 300 people across country, to move him and his 2 kids across country, or him and his wife and his kid across country, oh yeah, your son has a Prius, and he can drive at 90 miles an hour, great. But you're going to take your plane across country and burn as much fuel as 300 people do, and then you're going to preach to us about global warming? That's hypocrisy at its worst level, but of course, that's sort of what you expect. I mean, it's sort of like the Russian regime, right?
Right.
To each as he needs, and from each as he's able, but when it just doesn't seem like the science bears them out.
It seems to me that if you ask 10 different scientists, you'll get 10 different answers.
Yeah, and when you get into the statistics about what they actually ask the scientists, because they say, 97% of scientists believe humans are responsible for global warming. The actual question is, do you believe that there's a anthropomorphic effect on global warming? And of course, every scientist has to say yes, because obviously we're spewing CO2 like crazy. And obviously we are influencing only 1 in 4,000 emergency room visits every year. So basically, being dominant. Here's one of my favorite examples. If I told you that the township flushed 50,000 gallons of raw sewage or 1 million gallons of raw sewage into Lake Erie, you're like, oh my. People's a statistic, but one's a tragedy. It's the way our minds work. And so this global warming thing, people want to say, oh, we're spewing all this CO2, we're doing this, we're doing that. But in the overall scheme of things, it's tiny. It's really not as big a deal as anyone would have us believe. But I can go on and on about that.
Well, who was the brainiac that decided that CO2, carbon dioxide, is a harmful gas?
The EPA.
That's my big question. Who's the brainiac that came up with this?
In our courts, our Supreme Court allowed the EPA.
Animals and us living creatures on this earth, we all need it. The plants need it to live. We make it for the plants. To me, it's part of nature.
Well, and we make methane too. And here's the answer. It's ridiculous in a way, but on the other hand, and I'll give the courts credit about this. Courts say, hey, these are legislative problems. Work it out in your democracy.
Yeah, I don't get it. Excuse me, I'm dealing with some children right now.
I had my son this weekend. We went fishing. And I love my son because he likes to fish, but he doesn't like fish. So he'll reel his line about halfway in and then hand it to me and let me reel it the rest of the way in with the fish because he doesn't want to deal with the actually being near the fish when it comes up to shore. But he likes to fish, which I'm fine with. I think he'll get over his fear of fish eventually.
So, hey, by the way, I missed you Sunday night.
Yeah, you know what? And I forgot to post something, and it was terrible on my behalf. I was going to post something saying, hey, we're going to give the show off, because I went to visit, I did a family picnic, you know what I mean, for Memorial Day. And I said, to hell with it, I'm going to go enjoy the family. I saw my brothers, so my mother was there, my son was there, my nephew and niece were there, so we had a great time.
Yeah, well, I figured that, but I was home Sunday night, trying to, we'll stay close and, see if we can catch him.
Yeah, and that's my
thing,
Yeah, and like I said, I meant to do it a little sooner so people would know. And you're trying to do consistency. We had a technical difficulty last Wednesday, although we managed to squeak a show out of that. I think came off pretty good, actually. Sounds like my son in the background, but it's not. It's your son.
Right.
All right, boss. Well, I'm going to let you go. And
I'm a little busy right now, but I might, if you stay on the whole time, I'll make it over you a little later.
I'll be on till 9 tonight, so yeah, jump back on when you're ready, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So, nice talking to you again.
All right, thanks for calling in.
Oh, and hey.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did want to make a comment to you, not a comment, but you had made a mention that you might like someone to screen some calls for you.
Yeah.
I might be interested in something like that.
Down the road, we will definitely...
do something like that.
The other thing I'm interested in, I want to get somebody that knows about sports, because I want to do a sports segment every week, too.
I'm not your guy for that.
Yeah, I'm not the guy for that either. I'm just going to make fun of the other guy that does it. All right, man. Enjoy your kids for a few marriage in Pennsylvania the other night. That seemed to be a hot topic. We were also talking about the NBA somehow to scuttle his NBA ownership by making a racist comment that was secretly recorded by his somewhat hot girlfriend. I say somewhat hot. If you're 80 years old, she's probably smoking hot. If you're, somewhere in between, you're like, I wouldn't kick her out for cracker crumbs or anything like that. But that girl definitely took advantage of it. There's no doubt about that. But I still maintain his free speech rights were not violated. On the gay marriage side, the governor of Pennsylvania, our good friend Tom Corbett, has completely abandoned the appeal. And I was telling my mom this weekend, I said, wouldn't it be funny if Tom Corbett said he's not appealing this decision in the United States Supreme Court? Because they've not ruled on this. They're acting like this U.S. Supreme Court has said this is a done deal. The United States Supreme Court, in holding up Proposition 8 and striking down the federal law in DOMA, left it very clear they were not deciding whether the states couldn't still decide this issue. And I'm laughing. It says, hey, it's still up to the states on what they want to do with gay marriage. How dumb is Tom Corbett going to look if that happens? Now, is it likely? He must be guessing it's not. But I'd still say it's 20% likely. I mean, nobody thought John Roberts was going to be a surprise vote on health care, so except for me, I did. And I have audio to prove that, by the way. But I did believe that, and sure enough, and I'm going to tell you right now, it would be very interesting for the governor of Pennsylvania to have to come back to the people and say, well, what happened was I was really sure we were going to lose, and I probably would have lost on appeal, but it does look like the Supreme Court just said the states can decide it. Because the governor was very disingenuous when he said that there's a high legal burden. I said this last Wednesday. There's no such thing as a high legal burden for this kind of thing. By the way, 717-916-5189 if you want to get here on the air. Seriously, there is no such thing as a high legal burden. What you have is the ability of appellate courts to review any legal issue de novo, basically meaning from scratch. So for the governor to say that there's a high legal issue here, completely not true. It's just simply completely not true. Hey, what do I know? Now, back to Snowden for a minute here. What I was pointing out about Edward Snowden is he basically exposed a terrible hypocrisy in our government. And what do I mean by that? I mean a terrible hypocrisy where they're telling us that everything's under control, your rights are being protected, there are congressional oversight committees, there is FISA court oversight, there's all these things going on. So even though we're doing a lot of secret stuff, you can trust us your privacy rights are not being violated. And then they're going out and they're getting Supreme Court decisions dismissed. I mean, absolutely dismissed by lying to the court. They are openly lying to Congress in front of the American people. Are you collecting records on millions of people? No, the NSA does not do any bulk record collection whatsoever. Well, actually, I was lying when I said that. And now that Snowden's come out and we've been proven otherwise, we're going to pretend that was no big deal. By the way, if you know this conversation, it's 717-916-5189. Again, 717-916-5189. You come in by Skype here. If you want to read my article today, by the way, I have these quotes. I have great links to prove everything I'm saying about Snowden. We have evidence about these lies to Congress. We have evidence of these lies. It's just been admitted now. The Director Clapper said, "Whoa, I had to lie because they asked me a question and the information was classified, so I couldn't answer it truthfully. So I gave the least untruthful answer I could come up with." Well, that's great. I mean, we're getting the least untruthful answer he could come up with. It sounds like a real democracy to me. By the way, here's another one. What's going on with this Clinton v. Bush election? Are we going to have another Clinton v. Bush election? I hope to hell not. I mean, really, rest of the world, we are a democracy, and we will tell you how to run a democracy. And then you find out that it's sort of like, the Habsburgs and or the Cabots and the Lodges, There's only 3 family names that can run the state or the country. It's a dynasty. It's a oligarchy. It's something, but it doesn't sound like a democracy when the Clintons and the Bushes are forever our candidates. And I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. I'm not sure how we're going to prevent that. I'm not sure what we're going to do to change that. But I would really like. One of my buddies on Facebook, by the way, but I would really like to see this change. Buddies on Facebook. Most basic level. And it's like my son found a bobber. So we were fishing the other day, and he found a bobber on the shore, and he asked if he could keep look at it anymore and has no expectation of ever getting it back. And so we would want you to have it so that you could put it to use and fish with it, for instance, or do whatever it is you do with a bobber that's better than it simply fading away and no longer existing. You say, but doesn't it belong to somebody? Are they looking for it? And I said, well, that's interesting. Analysis, then yeah, it's always theft when you take government secrets. But when you take the government secrets for the purpose of showing that the government is lying to the citizens, that the government is hiding things, that the government is lying to the courts, that the government is lying to the Congress, and as a result, the government is getting away with proverbial murder, end quote. Is it theft at that point, or is it necessity? Did Snowden act out to basically show that our democratic ideals were dying in secret, were being strangled and hidden and destroyed in secret? Is that what Snowden did? Or did he violate secrecy in a way that weakened our position in the world? Well, it probably did weaken our position in the world. This problem that I have with that is, what's the balance? If the executive branch can lie, if the executive branch can lie to the judiciary, if the executive branch can lie to the Congress, if they can lie to the people, then there's no accountability. It's a 717-916-5189. Again, 717-916-5189. Think about that. to interpret the Constitution to make the law of the land as one-third of government, you're going to tell me as the executive branch you're going to write a brief and claim, and this just makes me angry, you're going to claim that they have a right. What is that? How can when 9 justices are one-third of the federal government and they can't have the information they need to decide because the executive branch says you're not cleared to know this? How can those 9 people not be angrier? Because, yes, they have the right to decide whether abortion is legal. Yes, they have the right to decide seriously classified information because we're the executive branch, and even though 1,000 people in some godforsaken agency know about this, we can't let 9 Supreme Court justices have that information to make an honest decision with accountability to the American people. That is not a democracy. That is not a democracy. That is an out-of-control federal government that we should be fed up with. So I'm telling you. I believe that sincerely with all my heart. In all seriousness, how can the executive branch unilaterally decide, just unilaterally decide to support Congress on this? Congress should impeach the president, not over Benghazi, not over whatever made-up thing of the day the Republicans or the Democrats might want to argue about, but over something meaty and weighty, like downright lying to the Supreme Court. And the very fact that this guy who runs the NSA can get away with lying to Congress, and they do nothing about it, he's allowed to keep his job, it's ridiculous. The sheep are in danger. The wolf is not watching the hen house. The wolf is in the hen house. In fact, chickens are in the Supreme Court. Are they going to do anything about it? I mean, really? If I were the court, and I think the court has the power to do this, the court should do a contempt petition. They should cite the guy with a rule to show cause. Listen, if I went to court, back when I was a lawyer, if I had gone to court, and I said, Judge, let me tell you something, that the facts are A, B, and C, and the judge later learned that I lied about A, B, and C, or I at least lied about Chief Justice Roberts suddenly decided that the be interesting to see whether they stand up for what they believe in and do anything about this, or they just take it on the chin. I guess that's the job of the Supreme Court now. Well, we'll just continue to make bad decisions based on lies, but we'll just pretend that the next time they're going to tell us the truth because we're not going to police it. Or is the court afraid that their power won't be? Is this the Constitution? Federal court power seems to be given no shrift. We're going to lie to the court. We can lie to the court. Now, what about state actors? Could the governor? We're just going to lie to the court. I commend Tom. I say Tom Rench. Yeah, I commend. Law. They entered into a stipulation saying we don't know of any individual voter fraud. And that killed the case. At the end of the day, that's why they couldn't prevail. On the other hand, maybe the governor really believed that to be true, and I think it was true, and I think he really did believe it to be true, and I give him great credit. It's not going to help my case, but I'm going to at least admit to something. I'm not going to make a court struggle over it because I recognize something to be true, that there is no individual voter fraud in Pennsylvania. By the way, if you want to jump in here, I want to hear what you guys have to say. 717-916-5189. 717-916-5189. You can Skype me or shoot me a message. Those are a separate branch. We'll talk about the administrative branch as the government or the legislative branch as the government. But we pretend that the courts are not part of the government for purposes of that analysis. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, but that seems to be the question. By the way, 717-916-5189. Listen to if you want to call in. You're always welcome. You know that. I see you routing around here on Facebook. And I know Sharon, by the way, I apologize. I wish you could call in because I want to hear what you have to say. You've posted some really good stuff today. So, anyhow, long story short, I would really expect that our federal government would come back with something truthful instead of lying. But trail, again, telling you, I'm going to make your life better, I'm going to make you smarter, I'm going to make you taller, and we vote for them because we believe all that malarkey. That's one. This country will not maintain itself as a democracy if we allow this to continue. So those of you, my conservative friends, those of you, my liberal friends, those of you, my apolitical friends, who say, well, government's going to lie, and they need to do it for national security because there might be a dirty bomb or a biological weapon coming. Guess what? I'd rather face the brunt of that than give up my freedom. Founding fathers on that, they were protecting you from the boogeyman, whether it be the evil chemical weapon or the evil biological or radiological attack or the next evil terrorist attack. I just cannot understand why people buy that argument. But, what the Rwandans did. Our government would never be like that. There'll never be a dictatorship in the United States. There'll never be a repression of freedom. There'll never be a gun confiscation. There'll never be, just fill in the blank. They locked the Japanese up in internment camps in this country in kind of, oh, great, here comes a layperson interjecting into the conversation, kind of a technical conversation. And I turn, and I see a man about 50 years of age, obviously of Asian descent, and as I learned shortly after that, his parents were Japanese Americans. And he said every one of their constitutional rights was abridged. And he remembers this, and he knows this, and he's lived this. So this is not ancient history. This is not impossible. This is not implausible. And then we come back to our Supreme Court was seven nine one six 5189. Again, 717-916-5189. If you have an attitude, I want to know what you guys think about Edward Snowden. Patriot? Traitor? I'm always amazed how people are very comfortable throwing off comments on Facebook. And if you're a little nervous about calling, don't be. I mean, this is a great opportunity to have a discussion. I'm not going to beat you up if I disagree with you. I mean, I've been known to do that in the past, but I promise I won't today. And I'm not going to make fun of you because all points are valid. And I really try to point Manager.com about this. One of the things that I was trying to point out is that it's not exactly clear what the right answer is. It's certainly clear that Congress was being lied to, and it's perfectly clear that the truth is not being shared with the Congress or the courts. But it doesn't mean that Stone gets a free pass. I think what would be very interesting is if the president simply pardoned him. I think that would be the strongest move of all. But they're scared to death to do that, because if you pardon Snowden, you're basically saying to a few 100,000 other federal employees, for court oversight when the courts were being lied to. And we can say, you know what, the fact that everybody was being lied to and he knew or should have known or did know or correctly pointed out that there was no recourse, well then, I don't see why he shouldn't get a pardon. In fact, he should get a Medal of Honor, in my mind, for putting himself at risk. Absolutely at risk. But the government, the administration of justice is scared to death, because if Snowden gets a free pass, think of all the other people who might know of other seedy, terrible, horrible things the government is up to, and might know about these things and want to chime in. That's kind of annoying. It's kind of an intrusion. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not in the wrong. I'll just let things be. I'll just leave it like it is. I don't know. I really don't know what the right answer to that is. So if you have an opinion, I'd like to hear it. Give us a call, 717-916-5189. Go ahead, call in right now, and we'll get you on the air. And if not, of course, you can listen to the podcast. If you're listening to this podcast later, you can call that number and leave me a message. I hope that he does not rot in jail. I hope that John Kerry is proven wrong, that he is not a coward. I hope that people understand that, in fact, I don't know. Shoot me a Facebook post. I want to know. Because allegedly my system shows it going up fully. And I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you if there's a problem or not. So, but then again, we use here, what is it, Comcast. So if Comcast is having a bad day, that's always a possibility that things aren't going up like they should. But who knows? I don't know. I'm hoping you're catching the broadcast good. And so, anyhow,